The rain was coming down in sharp silver lines, drumming against the glass walls of the skyscraper lobby. The building was nearly empty that night, except for a tired janitor pushing a cart across the polished marble floor and the CEO standing near the reception desk, with a phone pressed tightly to her ear. Her voice trembled with urgency as she spoke into the receiver. Suddenly, the line on the other end crackled with static, and a desperate voice shouted a phrase that no one around seemed to understand. Without thinking, the janitor stopped, lifted his head, and calmly replied with a call sign. In that moment, the CEO slowly turned around, staring at him as if she had just seen a ghost, because the call sign he had used belonged to a pilot, a military pilot, someone who should not have been pushing a mop across the floor at midnight. Before we dive deeper into this incredible story, take a moment to like the video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in kindness and second chances, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories like this. Your support helps bring these real human moments to life. The janitor's name was Daniel Carter, and to most people in the building he was invisible. Every night he arrived quietly at 10 p.m., wearing the same faded blue uniform, pushing the same squeaky cart filled with cleaning supplies. He moved through the hallways like a shadow, wiping desks, emptying trash cans, and polishing floors that executives walked across the next morning without ever noticing who had cleaned them. But Daniel had once lived a very different life. Years earlier, he had been Captain Daniel Carter, a decorated pilot who flew cargo and rescue missions through dangerous storms and hostile skies. He had known the roar of jet engines, the bright glow of cockpit instruments, and the quiet thrill of guiding a massive aircraft safely through darkness. Then life changed in a single brutal moment. One winter night during a rescue operation in the mountains, Daniel's aircraft had been caught in violent turbulence. He managed to land the damaged plane and save everyone on board, but the crash ended his flying career. The injuries to his shoulder and spine meant he could never pass the flight medical exam again. Losing the sky felt like losing a piece of his soul, but the real tragedy came months later when his wife Emily became seriously ill. Medical bills piled up, and despite Daniel working multiple jobs, he couldn't save her. When she passed away, Daniel was left with two things, a small apartment and his 6-year-old daughter, Lily. From that moment forward, his life revolved around her. Daniel took the janitor job because it allowed him to work nights while spending his days raising Lily. He helped her with homework, packed her lunches, walked her to school, and told her bedtime stories about airplanes and clouds. To Lily, her father wasn't a janitor. He was a hero who once touched the sky. Most people in the office building never asked about Daniel's past. To them, he was just the quiet man with the mop who nodded politely when they passed him in the hall. But that night in the lobby, something unexpected happened. The CEO, Victoria Langford, had been dealing with a crisis involving one of the company's private aircraft. The plane had lost communication with air traffic control during a storm while carrying several executives on board. The pilots were struggling to relay their coordinates through a failing radio system. Victoria had been trying to patch calls through emergency lines when suddenly the radio signal burst through the phone speaker. The voice of the pilot shouted a call sign used in older aviation communication systems, something almost no one outside aviation would recognize, except Daniel. When he heard it, his instincts took over. Without hesitation, he responded using the proper aviation call format, his voice calm and steady. The sound of it instantly changed the tone of the call. The pilot on the other end responded with relief, quickly exchanging information. Victoria watched the janitor speak a language she barely understood. Numbers, directions, wind speeds, emergency phrases. Yet it was clear he knew exactly what he was doing. Within minutes, Daniel helped the pilot relay their position to emergency services. The aircraft was located and guided safely to the nearest airport. When the call ended, silence filled the lobby. Victoria stared at Daniel as he slowly lowered the phone and returned it to the desk. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then she asked the question that had been echoing in her mind since she heard the call sign. How do you know aviation communication protocols? Daniel hesitated. He wasn't someone who liked to talk about his past. Life had taught him that titles and uniforms didn't matter as much as simply getting through the next day. But Victoria waited patiently. Finally, he told her the truth about being a pilot, about the crash, about losing Emily, about raising Lily alone. He spoke quietly, without drama or self-pity, as if describing someone else's life. By the time he finished, Victoria felt something she hadn't expected: shame. She had walked past this man dozens of times without ever seeing him. The janitor who cleaned her office had once flown rescue missions through storms. That night, Victoria went home with Daniel's story heavy on her mind. She couldn't stop thinking about how easily people overlook those around them. The next morning, she called the company's aviation department and asked them a simple question: "Do we have any training or simulator roles available?" The managers were confused, but they explained that the company's pilots occasionally trained using advanced flight simulators. Victoria smiled slightly. "Good," she said, "because I think we might have someone who should be sitting in one." A week later, Daniel received an unexpected request. He was asked to visit the company's aviation training center. At first, he thought there had been some mistake, but when he walked inside and saw the massive flight simulator, a full cockpit replica surrounded by glowing screens, something stirred deep inside him. It felt like seeing an old friend after years apart. Victoria stood beside the simulator and gestured toward the seat. "Just try it," she said. Daniel hesitated. He hadn't touched a cockpit in years, but slowly he climbed inside. The moment his hands touched the controls, muscle memory returned like a forgotten song. His eyes scanned the instruments instinctively, his fingers adjusting switches with quiet confidence. Within minutes, he was guiding the simulated aircraft smoothly through a storm scenario. The instructors stared in disbelief. Even after years away from flying, Daniel's skill was undeniable. Victoria watched from behind the glass window, smiling softly. She wasn't just seeing a janitor anymore. She was seeing the man he had always been. Over the following months, Daniel began helping with simulator training sessions. He couldn't fly real aircraft anymore due to medical restrictions, but his knowledge and experience became invaluable for training younger pilots. For the first time in years, he felt connected to the sky again. But the most important moment came one evening when Lily visited the training center. Her eyes grew wide as she saw her father sitting in the cockpit of the simulator. "Dad, are you flying again?" Daniel knelt beside her and smiled. "Not exactly," he said softly, "but I'm helping others learn how." Lily hugged him tightly. To her, that was even better, because her father wasn't just someone who once touched the sky, he was someone who had found a way back to it. And before we reach the end of this story, here's a special request. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from and share one act of kindness you've seen in your life. Your stories inspire others more than you know. Years later, many pilots who trained at that center would remember the quiet instructor who used to work nights cleaning floors. They remembered how he spoke about responsibility, calm thinking, and courage under pressure. But most of all, they remembered the story of the night when a janitor answered a call sign that no one else understood, and changed everything. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue sharing powerful stories that remind us that every person we pass might carry a story we never expected. Because sometimes, the hero standing right in front of us is the one we almost didn't see.